It was a season that began with hope and optimism, and one that ended the same way. Though the Leafs missed the playoff for the 5th straight year, and though no player is happy about it, there seems to be a renewed sense of leadership and urgency within the dressing room. It was no doubt a season of ups and downs, and though no one has made any bold predictions for next year, the Leafs and their fans remain hopeful that a return to the playoffs is coming. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toronto Maple Leafs season in review. Annie Petrillo, Paul Hendrick. But let's go back to the first half of the season where there was renewed optimism in the sense that we had these huge trades, in the sense that Phil Kessel was signed and 9 new players. What did you think going into that season?
Well, I'll tell you, I thought in August, I was on the Fan 590 on a morning show and talking about a team that I thought was going to compete for playoff spot 7, 8, maybe 9, 10, 11, in around that mix, but competing for a playoff spot. I also thought that Vesa Toskala, who the team had shut down the previous March and had a couple of off-season surgeries, was ready to go. He was ready to go, at least physically, but I don't know if he was ready to go mentally. He got off to a dreadful start, and it's been well publicized this last little while by Brian Burke and Ron Wilson that he wasn't up to snuff, and everything just seemed to fall from there. You look at the acquisitions of Beauchemin and Komisarek. Andy, those two in itself should have made the blue line better. They did eventually, but in that first 12 games in the month of October, those two guys were combined minus 19. And I know, talking with Michael at one point earlier this season in the fall, coming to the city, the new contract, it was very difficult for him emotionally. Francois Beauchemin might be a veteran in this league, but he's played with other great players like Niedermayer and Pronger. He did not have to be the main guy. This took some adjustment, but after those two guys settled down, I think things went very well for the hockey team, especially Francois, and we know what happened to Michael, but he's going to be better come training camp in the fall. But you asked me where I thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to be competing for a playoff spot and not a team that was limited to just 2 wins in the month of October.
Yeah, a lot of people excited also to see Phil Kessel in that lineup. Missed all of October, but when he was in the lineup, 10 points in 13 games. And then, of course, the big trade ended up happening, which brought over Dion Phaneuf, Jay Shiger, and Frederick Schustrom. And, of course, that made general manager Brian Burke very happy. And we go back to that time when he made those trades and get his thoughts.
Well, I think it was a win-win. I mean, if you focus on the 2 deals, I believe this trade gets Calgary into the playoffs. I think Darryl picked up some guys who will definitely help him. And long-term, Hagee signed for beyond this year, so I think there's some long-term benefits as well. And Ian White, of course, was a good performer for us. So I think they win. I think it gets them in the playoffs. Long-term, I think it makes sense for us because we had a real vital building block.
You look at the entire situation, it's a process, and the positives would have to be Carl Gunnarsson, Luke Schenn, and how he's developed through adversity this season, and we can go on beyond that. Tyler Bozak here, and I mean, these are major building blocks moving forward, I think.
Well, I think, again, I think general managers, when they do interviews in late January and their team is struggling, try and put a spin on things and try and make it sound as good as you can. I don't want to do that. I do want to point out some positives. Like you said, I do believe that if you look at the prospects in the organization, I think you'd have to conclude that Carl Gunnarsson was a marvelous pick, a Fergie pick, not mine. Mm-hmm. Luke Schenn has really come on the last dozen games. I think he's played extremely well. Cliff Fletcher pick, not mine. Mm-hmm. But like these are players you can get excited about. But then if you look at who are the other prospects, the best player right now probably with the Marlies would be, you'd say, Victor Stahlberg, a Fergie pick, mm-hmm. or Christian Hansen, who's a player we signed in the offseason as a free agent. We're going after a couple more college free agents this year as soon as they're eliminated. We're going to try to do the same thing where we add assets without expending draft picks. From the end of last season to the start of this season, we added Jonas Gustafsson, we added Colton Orr, we added Francois Beauchemin, Mike Komisarek, we added Tyler Bozak, Christian Hansen. These are all guys that were added without expending a draft pick. So to me, they're important players for us that were added without expending assets. And again, we drafted Nazem Kadri, made all these other moves, and that's why we felt we had the wherewithal to do the Phil Kessel, and that's a piece that we added that did cost us some assets.
So those were the thoughts of general manager Brian Burke on the trade. Now it's time to hear from head coach Ron Wilson at that time and how excited he was to be part of the rebuilding process.
I cut my teeth in Anaheim, and there you keep all your draft picks, and you know it's going to be a 3 or 4 year process. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to come to Toronto, and you're forbidden to openly say it's going to take us 3 or 4 years to get ourselves in a position to where we think we can, our foundation strong enough to build a a permanent structure. And but deep down, that's what Brian and I have to remind ourselves all the time. Are they, the management, at least reminding me? I'm at this point in my career a little bit impatient. I think, and I'm disappointed that I haven't had a bigger impact. But on the other hand, Brian's addressing a lot of these issues. Now we have what we feel for the future are 2 impact players, very young. Phil's 22, Dion's 24, and there are cornerstones to what we're going to try to build. And we've got younger people coming like Tyler Bozak, Christian Hansen we have high hopes for, Luke Shen, obviously, on the back end. And then when you think of Nazem Kadri and some of the other guys that we drafted in the past 2 years, again, it's frustrating for everybody here, not this year or maybe not even next year, but we think that these young guys, and I would actually right now prefer a much younger team that's willing to learn different things every day and is more concerned about fixing all the little things they have wrong with their game to be full-time NHL players than to have a group of veterans who get cynical after a while of losing and don't really want to give 100% every night. I really like the situation that we're building here.
That's changing the sense of entitlement, the hockey culture, if you want, I guess, in terms of the player's mindset.
Yeah, well, we have had that sense. I feel it. And here, sometimes guys are playing on the power play because they have a little bit of ability, but on a good team, they'd be sitting on the third line. They might not ever see power play ice time. And after a while, when I don't have any options, they do feel they're entitled to step on the ice even if they're not getting the job done. But we're convinced that the swagger that Dion brings to our room, the hard work and dedication that a J.S. Giguère brings to our locker room as a shining example of what hard work is, combined with the success he's had in his career so far. He's a major trophy winner. He's won the Stanley Cup. He can relay all these experience to young people. And again, you know, in the case of J.S., he's 4 days older than Tosk. It's kind of amazing. People were looking at Tosk like his best years are ahead of him, and everybody we're bringing in J.S., and his best years are behind him. They're the same age, so we think that we brought in somebody with better experience. He's in the top 10 in most goalie categories over the last 10 years in the league, and we're hoping that he can calm everything down in the back end and allow Jonas Gustafsson to develop at the rate that we want him to develop, not force feed him before he's ready.